Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to continue on with our journey, our discussions, our discoveries, and our explorations with respect to the recent releases made by the Criterion Collection during this year of 2022. That brings us to that title, which has been released by Criterion, designated at spy number 1109. This is a work described as being from the year 2020. The filmmaker is Garrett Bradley. The name of the work is Time. This is the work from the year 2020, and it is from the filmmaker Garrett Bradley. This is described as being a documentary. It's an extraordinary work, which is called Time. Time is a film whose scope and focus could be said to be regarding this incredible individual, this extraordinary woman who is Sybil Fox Richardson, or Fox Rich. It is focusing in on her life and her family and her challenges and her direct challenges with regard to, or in respect of, aspects of the criminal justice system in the United States. Her story is, we understand from watching the film, one involving her place where she lives. This is Louisiana in the United States. And also we understand through glimpses of the past and the present, which is extraordinary, one of the fascinating aspects, one of many fascinating aspects of this film, Time. Through glimpses of her past and present, we begin to understand what her intimate story is, and that of her close-knit circle of family and friends. And when we speak of that family, this is where that story comes in quite directly, because we understand that she is a mother, and she is a proud mother of this family. It's a beautiful family, and of 6 children, 6 sons. And we actually have the great pleasure of meeting and encountering many of those children throughout the course of this film. And those are really touching and very moving moments, heartwarming moments in terms of the intimacy and the love and the bonds that we get a sense of when we watch those very tender family moments. But we also understand that that family is also having another very important member, that is the father or the husband, who is Robert Richardson. Now, this is where one of those direct challenges that was referred to earlier comes into play, because we understand throughout the course of watching this film that the present situation is that the husband, the father, Robert, is currently serving time in a Louisiana State Penitentiary, So he is currently serving a prison sentence in prison for a crime which we understand involved robbery. And also it was a crime that Sybil Fox Richardson, we also understand from her own comments was directly involved in or implicated in as well. And so with those events, as of the present moments of the film, we understand that Robert is or has been serving time, that sentence. Now, this is a very important detail, because that sentence, we also understand, was imposed at 60 or so years. And then at the time of the present moments of the film, Robert has already served 20 years of that 60-year sentence. And so it is now the focus of the film, again in these present moments, or one of the foci of the film, shall we say, where we see Sybil Fox Richardson, or Fox Rich, this extraordinary person at the heart of this film, trying to avail herself of whatever means are at her disposal in the criminal justice system or otherwise, to try to, in a sense, get her husband released. So to shorten or to curtail that sentence, or to otherwise get some kind of official acceptance from the courts or judges of jurisdiction to agree to have Robert be freed, or to be released, I should say, from prison. So this is the direct challenge that she, Sybil Fox Richardson, or Fox Rich, and her family are trying to deal with and confront and talk to us about, speak to the community about, and also use as many means as they're at their disposal in order to try to get closer and closer to their ultimate objective. And that ultimate objective is, again, we are reminded through the intimacy of the portrait aspect capturing of the film, we are reminded that that ultimate goal is with regard to the family and the family bonds, and the importance of the intimate emotional bonds, the bonds of strength and the bonds of courage, and the bonds of type of hope, as well as the bonds of a real tenderness. And these are the bonds that are on display, that we are or I'm very honored to be able to witness through watching, through engaging with this work time. The idea here too is we get senses of the Fox Rich trying to engage with, say, on the phone with maybe the attorney or the attorney's secretary, or maybe on the phone with the clerk's office, the court clerk's office, or the receptionist there, or whatever, trying to get some kind of word about whether a decision has been handed down or something, and getting the news that maybe it has been or has not been handed down, what that decision will be. The suspense for her is obvious and very immediate, and very resonant, of course. And of course it is, of course, because these are really significant and important decisions that will affect both her and also her children and everyone around her. So this is so important for all of their lives. And at the same time, she also she understands very well too, that she she is using not just the tools and methods that are available to her under the criminal justice system, but also she is trying to confront these challenges through her own acts and her own sense of self and her own sense of composure and posture and grace. And so these are really fascinating aspects to her character, and also how she understands perhaps the way in which she needs to appear in order to be able, at least in some degree, to further her particular cause, or to try to reach her particular objective. Now, she is at the center of this particular documentary, and so we see her also in an interesting, almost meta way, engaging with the camera in a lot of senses. We sometimes see her, Garrett Bradley captures moments, she captures moments with her camera where Fox Rich is maybe in the middle of trying to stage a particular scene for a particular recording of some sort. And so we understand immediately that Fox Rich is she's very savvy when it comes to appearance, a type of media appearance. She's also a public speaker, and a really compelling one at that. And so she understands, or we understand that she understands, or she has the sense of appreciating very much so, not just the heart of her particular focus or mission or objective, which is to try to have her husband released, and what the significance of that particular objective is in terms of the way in which she regards the harsh treatment of prison sentencing, and the idea of a very maybe unfair from certain perspectives, an unfair prison justice system in terms of meting out these incredibly long, year-long sentences, and where she recognizes or identifies from her perspective too, how perhaps too that these handing out of these long sentences could have this sense of racial discrimination, which then leads to these incredibly harsh realities for families like Sybil Fox Richardson and others in terms of incarceration and the harsh effects of incarceration. So that is all within, embedded very directly in her objective. And so this is also a film where she is seen to try to essentially uh, uh, resist that, or to create her own sense of protest against that, or to create a story that can be seen as being a type of argument against this type of aspect of the criminal justice system on the one hand. And the way that she is doing that is through poise, it's through her own composure and her own sense of calm, and also trying to, or not trying to, but also succeeding in creating this very warm and a very family-focused atmosphere. So it is in this way that this film is indeed quite nuanced and very fascinating, because we see her on the one hand trying to avail herself of certain aspects of criminal justice, while at the same time using that experience as a way to perhaps show the inequalities of such system, while also at the same time trying to abide by the rules of that system, while at the same time trying to create a sense of composure and posture that is outward, that she hopes, and she has mentioned this in some of the supplements, and we'll get to that momentarily, but how she hopes that this might be seen as a type of example for other families in the United States that are in similar situations like her family's is. So it can be a type of external, outward example, but also how that affects her inside. And one of the powerful aspects of this film, Time, too, is how Garrett Bradley and company, how she really uses the camera to get to that essence of the moments. There are moments where it's undeniable. I mentioned that Sybil Fox Richardson is very savvy, or she appears to be very savvy in regards to how she composes herself in front of the camera, and so that's really quite effective. But that's not to say that there's a phoniness to that type of quality or character. No, on the contrary, we see very evidently those moments that are undeniably raw and direct and very much revealing of the actual heart and soul, what she's really thinking at the moment, Fox Rich. And for example, there's a moments where we see her really frustrated in dealing with the phone calls, trying to get an answer. Has some kind of decision come down yet? Why we have to wait until 5 o'clock, and that's that. And if nothing comes, they have to take the initiative, call back to follow up, etc. And then getting that sense of frustration. She's very polite on the phone, but after she hangs up, she expresses some frustration, but she expresses it still in this really dignified way. But still we understand the frustration there. And it's very, very palpable. And it's very understandable because, as we say, her life and the life of her husband, the man that she loves, the father of her children, is on the line. So that's one thing. There's another great example, too, where we see her in the moment, say, watching on television an awards acceptance speech from Mary J. Blige, for example. And there's this moment of a type of pride and a type of emotion and a type of connection that she seems to be feeling. And this is also acknowledged in, say, the commentary track by Garrett Bradley and elsewhere, about how this is also a type of moment of the story is, as described also by Doreen St, Félix, and others, the viewpoint or vantage point from the perspective of this woman, this black woman, and how she seems also to be connecting with the experience of Mary J. Blige, which is also reflecting on her own story, and how it's all type of way in which this is a portrait of this American family experience, and also this woman's perspective, this black woman's perspective, as well as this perspective of a mother and a wife and a human being that is trying to do something that she feels is not only reasonable, but also something that is having an incredible effect and impact, not just on her family, but on millions of other families in the United States in similarly situated circumstances. So it is all in this incredible package that is this work Time. Now that is only that's what I've just said here is barely even scratching the surface, because this is so deep and so resonant. And one of the aspects of that deep richness and resonance is the structure of this work. So fascinating in how both past and present are the subject matter of this work. Now, I say this because the present moments, we understand, were shot by Garrett Bradley and her crew and her camera in this wonderful, beautiful, glorious, intimate way. But also there are edited into aspects of this work. There are also moments of video camcorder footage. Now, this video camcorder footage we understand from also the commentary and the supplements. We understand that this video camcorder footage is of Sybil Fox Richardson and her videotaping. She videotaped so many things of her life, and she had the camera and she talked to the camera, and we understand that this camera usage was so important. And we'll get to that camera usage, I think, when we talk about one of the supplements later. So, but it's so important to catalog her. It was from her point of view to catalog her life and to see the growth of her children, and to see how they to see those moments then and the moments now when they are now grown up. And we, as I say, we meet many of those children now grown up in various circumstances, in school or otherwise. And so that change that is coming about before our very eyes is extraordinary. That also is true for Sybil Fox Richardson herself. We see a sense of how she is changing, or how she has turned herself. I mean, she mentions early on in one of the earlier video footage segments how she needs to really change, because she was in a very difficult situation. She admits as much, right? In a very difficult situation at the time, early on, but then she needs to really turn herself around, and then we get glimpses of her current state, and we see that indeed her situation has changed, and it is an incredible type of almost transcendental, almost poetic type of experience, while at the same time we understand that these people are one and the same. There are aspects of the character that are undeniably there, past, present, notwithstanding. So this type of playing with, or not playing with, this type of revelatory experience of using this video camcorder footage and the present moments to remind us of the power and passage of time, as well as to remind us of the resilience of the human character. Things that change also remind us of things that stay the same. I think it's one of the real captivating aspects of it, and really shows the further sense of the humanity that is at the heart of this. And it reminds us, yes, that the objective is, of course, directly speaking, a type of engagement with, or type of resistance to certain aspects of what might be deemed to be harsh and racially based inequalities of the criminal justice system. At the same time, the objective is also, or intertwined with that directly, the objective is also at the heart, this very beautiful and powerful and emotional family unit. So that use of time in footage, I think, reminds us of that, as well as reminding us of the sense of time, as well as showing us the progress, etc. Now, speaking of showing us the sense of time and progress, this is another fascinating aspect of time too, in that this film doesn't necessarily show us in a type of, say, line by line, factual based sort of presentation of the facts, if you will. It's not a documentary in the sense that we get this narrator who tells us this is what happened, then this is what happened, then this is what happened, then this is in a type of chronological order of that sort. It's not that type of documentary. We do get glimpses of information. We do get these from participants who are being interviewed. So we do get a sense of that from Sybil Fox Richardson herself or others. However, it's not in this type of chronological A, B, C, D, E revelation of facts type of flow, but it is instead a type of thing where we get a sense of the moment in time back in the day here, and we get a sense of Sybil Fox Richardson in the present. We get to hear a little bit from her mother, or we get to hear a little bit from Foxrich herself. And there are some really direct and honest moments too, where she is revealing how she acknowledges that what they did, the crime that they committed, this was a crime and it was wrong. She does acknowledge this. And she acknowledges her own fault and her own her involvement in this. And we also find out, for those who didn't know, when watching this for the first time, so like myself, we also find out a little bit about how she herself too served time for her involvement in that crime that Robert is still currently serving time for. So we get these moments, and we understand too from the mother that there might have been, there was a plea bargain situation that we understand she accepted, but he didn't. Again, it's not presented in this A, B, C, D, E type of way, but we do get those glimpses of information. We also get glimpses of information about where the children are, where the sons are, and the like. So what this means, and we also understand that there are certain hearing dates that are happening, key hearing dates, etc. But we never get that A, B, C, D, E. But that's not a weakness of the film. That is one of the great strengths of the film, because what it is we get the story. We understand what the story is, but we also see, or we also get that impression, while at the same time focusing in on these moments. These moments are what seem to be at the heart of this work, right? It's these moments, how we see them reacting to the news, or how we see them dealing with various, say, mistakes that they, as they say, acknowledge do occur. And this is also important too when we're speaking about the message or the mission, as it were. It's not that Fox Rich or Sybil Fox Richardson are trying to make the case that they or now her husband have been or are unjustly incarcerated, or that the crime, that they didn't commit any crime. No, their argument is that, yes, they did wrong. They did something wrong, or he has done something wrong, or she has done something wrong. And they acknowledge as such. And they acknowledge it with a full sense of responsibility, which is incredible. That being said, right, they also identify or feel that the punishment has been served, but that the number of years is reaching the point of harsh excess. And so the idea is that there is this stigma attached to incarceration, to prison, and how this stigma needs to be confronted, and how this stigma is exacerbated by what might be perceived to be harsh excesses in the meting out of punishment in the context of the criminal justice system. So it's not like they are arguing that they haven't done anything wrong. It's that people make mistakes. And if people have made mistakes, yes, of course, a type of retributive or a rehabilitative aspect to criminal justice is very important, thus creating the sense of crime and conviction and then punishment. But if punishment has been served, then the principle is that the real rehabilitative component that is at the heart, or one of the principles of criminal justice, would have been, in principle, fulfilled or satisfied. If that's the case, then there's no reason to keep someone incarcerated longer than that point that the rehabilitative aspect has been fulfilled or satisfied. So this is the key or heart of her argument. And it is a very, I think, charged and a very compelling one. And it does remind us, I'm not a criminal justice lawyer, and I'm not an expert at all when it comes to criminal justice, even, let alone the criminal justice laws of the state of Louisiana. However, generally speaking, right, there is this aspect, which is the philosophy of punishment could be derived from a number of sources. It could be in a form of a type of retribution, which is itself derived from these aspects of need for retribution that might come from society itself in certain forms, and or it could be this form of rehabilitation. In other words, the concept being someone in society has made a mistake, and so based on certain societal norms, that person, in order to be able to, quote unquote, return to society, needs to undergo a type of process of rehabilitation. Once that process of rehabilitation has been undergone and completed, and the confirmation of such has been made, then such person can, quote unquote, return to, quote unquote, normal society. The argument, therefore, is that the rehabilitative process has been completed. So it seems to make perfect sense from Fox Rich and her family's perspective to have Robert be released. This is the concept. And so she is really, in a way, trying to maybe not totally destroy this criminal justice system, but rather using what's there, in a sense, trying to put emphasis or focus back on this concept of rehabilitation and the need for a reasonable scope and approach towards this aspect of rehabilitation, the rehabilitative properties or components of criminal justice. This is really incredible, and so and I think what is really remarkable about how this film approaches that is that it's there, and yet it's how should I put it? It's on the surface, and it's also beneath the surface, and it leaves room for interpretation, and yet at the same time it preserves the concept of nuance, and also preserves the concept, and it really respects the way in which Fox Rich seems to be trying to express these feelings. She's not expressing them in this direct way of let's take down the system. She's not doing that at all. On the contrary, she's trying to avail herself of the system while at the same time making these points and arguments that are very effectively done. So this is, and the film Time, I would suggest, has that same type of philosophy. In other words, creating the sense of preserving or respecting the composure and the grace of Fox Rich and company, while at the same time leaving room for us, the viewers, to understand and get a sense of how that message or that component to her objective has many, many possible facets. So this is, I think, very much integral, not just to Fox Rich's story, but also the way in which Garrett Bradley is fashioning and forming and structuring the work Time in this way to preserve and to protect and to essentially respect that sense of a nuanced way to approach this particular challenge. This is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The structure of this work is brilliant. The way it's echoing or mirroring the subject is brilliant. All around, this is a compelling work. I learned so much from this. I must say, too, that I was coming to this work for the first time, so I knew nothing. I knew nothing about this particular story. I knew nothing about Garrett Bradley. I knew nothing about Sybil Fox Richardson, Fox Rich. I knew nothing about this, except for the very, very brief things that I read. So when I saw this for the first time, I was really taken aback, really was. I couldn't believe it. And I had to watch it again and again to get more of the information, more of the sense. And it's such a beautifully told story too. I try to hint at this in my comments now in terms of the layering here, and there's a sense of poetry. The music layered in gives a sense of an expanse and an intimacy, and also too going back to the title, time. Time is a cruel thing. It could also be a beautiful thing, and this is acknowledged in some of the comments in the commentary track from Garrett Bradley herself and also other places. But there's this universal aspect of time that is also very much intimate and part of the moment. You know, it's that thing where time affects all. It's universal. It's part of the universe, part of the cosmos. And at the same time, it is something that is so much part of our own individual unique experiences. And that is definitely the case for Sybil Fox Richardson. I mean, time is directly involved. It's 20 years, she says. 20 years, 2 decades of her life with regard to Robert. So that's time, but also the time of the moment, those times that we see where she is engaging with her sons, or where she is talking on the phone, or where she is just sitting and watching, or where she is just smiling, or where she's talking to the camera. Those are also moments of time. So time can be cruel, time can also be beautiful. Time can be vast and can be infinite and can feel endless, or can feel so precious, or so it can feel like that moment is a moment forever. And so this is, I think, that great paradox, that great beautifully constructed poetic contradiction of time. And I think that way in which time is figured into this film, I think serves as a beautiful reminder and justification for the title of this film. Garrett Bradley's work, extraordinary work from 2020, which is Time. The Criterion Collection has released this work, Time. It's by number 1109, and this is described as being a 4K digital master with 5.1 surround DTS HD master audio soundtrack for this Blu-ray. So this is also, we understand, Amazon Studios as well. So that is the continuation of that particular partnership or relationship with Criterion. So we're getting works like Time, and the opportunity for people like me and others to discover this voice, this wonderful voice that was completely unknown to me. And I'm ashamed to admit I had no idea before, but now I'm so happy to know more about the incredible presence and incredible voice of Garrett Bradley and her work Time, now in the Criterion Collection in this great, great Blu-ray. Now, the features too, let's focus on the special features here, the supplements. There are a number of supplements here. It might not seem on paper to be a lot of supplements, but the quality is very impressive indeed. So let's just go into what those supplements are. First of all, we have an optional audio commentary track from Garrett Bradley herself, and this is described as being from 2021. So we can say it's a fairly recently recorded commentary track, and so that's really great indeed. What I love about this, so this was when I watched this film. I watched the film again upon getting the Criterion release, and then I didn't necessarily watch a lot of other maybe interviews or the like from Garrett Bradley, and so I was just trying to gather my thoughts first and then try to engage with those supplements. So then after I gathered my thoughts, I listened to the commentary track. I watched the film and listened to the commentary track again from Garrett Bradley, and I was very impressed. I was very, very impressed. She has this. First of all, she has this really lovely, lovely demeanor in her speaking, and it's just a very calm, relaxing journey that she is taking us along as she is revisiting the film, and she is just sharing with us those stories, those moments, and those themes that were really important to her and also to Sybil Fox Richardson, etc. And so she mentions, for example, in the course of the commentary, the idea of, well, meeting Sybil Fox Richardson for the first time, and that was an incredibly important meeting. How this is related to another work, a short work that is also part of this Criterion Collection supplements, which is called Alone, and we'll talk about that momentarily. And Garrett Bradley describes the relationship between Alone, the short film, and this film Time as being like, they are like sister films. I think that's the phrase that she uses. That's a really interesting point too, because we will discover that there are many connections between that film Alone, which is a fascinating, powerful work in and of itself on the one hand, and then this work Time. One of those connections is, of course, the crossover with the way in which the paths of Garrett Bradley and Sybil Fox Richardson met. And so we also get a sense to, or get some comments from Garrett Bradley about their meeting in 2016. And then also the idea too about how Garrett Bradley is acknowledging how she understands that Fox Rich, she really understands the process, and she understands the what's at stake, and she understands the societal and almost historical significance of her story, and how it is in many ways so important for her story to be told. And so this acknowledgement, I think, is just showing just how closely in sync Sybil Fox Richardson and Garrett Bradley were, and those around her. And also she speaks to about the archival footage, and this is the component I was speaking about earlier about past and present, the past moments or the present moments. Garrett Bradley describes that there were a number of directors, of photographer, camera persons that were using the camera, but then for the past moments, she just talks about the archival footage, how it was her initial intention to create a short film much like the running time of Alone, but that during the process, in essence, Sybil Fox Richardson surprised Garrett Bradley by revealing to her that she had this huge collection of tapes that she made, that she videotaped, and she just essentially gave them to Garrett Bradley so that she could use them to her own choice. And so from that exploration of that archival footage, she ended up creating the structure, which turned into the feature-length version of Time. So that is a really amazing detail. It also shows the real sense of Sybil Fox Richardson and how she really, I mean, it's not just that she was camera savvy, it is that, but it's also the fact that she has this real sense of trying to capture and trying to get a sense of who she is, and also trying to share that. And not share, and when she was making these videotapes, she wasn't intending to share that with the world. She was, we understand later from another supplement, she just wanted to, well, she wanted to make these in order to record these moments so that she could share them with her husband and her family, in order to not lose these, because right at the time her husband was already in jail, unfortunately. So this was such a powerful thing. But also we understand, I think, elsewhere about, she mentions, I think it's in the interview, that's also in part of the or somewhere else, I forget exactly where, I apologize for not being able to recall exactly, but I seem to recall the comment where it was described to that Sybil Fox Richardson didn't necessarily watch all of these. And so when the family watched the final film upon its release, they were so thrilled and surprised to see all these moments of their lives that were caught on this videotape footage, but they just didn't see until it was revealed in the film. So that is a real beautiful anecdotal moment that's also mentioned here. And she also talks, Garrett Bradley does in the commentary track, about Peggy, the mother figure, and how that is an opportunity to talk about maybe generational differences between the mother and daughter Peggy and Sybil, and how they might have slightly different perspectives and takes on what should have been done. There's a real telling moment where Peggy's talking about the plea bargain issue. At the same time, there's also this sense of undeniable sense of love and devotion and bond in terms of that generational that cross-generational aspect. And that cross-generational aspect also goes from Sybil to her sons as well. And so we see, as we say, she has 6 children, and we meet a number of them during the course of this film. Sort of, for example, Freedom and Justice and Remington, and so there are some real lovely moments where we see them grown up, of course, in the present moment, and then we also get glimpses of their past as young boys, and talking with their mother, going to school, in the car, and then now growing up, maybe at school, and studying and graduating. Just these are what moving moments these are, and we're so fortunate to be able to get glimpses into these real lovely, intimate family moments indeed. And then the idea too about information, the exchange of information, how this is a really key concept about how Sybil Fox Richardson really needs to be informed or keep herself informed, and also to share that information with others in order to be able to move to the next step. And that's not always easy, because things can be complicated, and things can be, and especially when you're talking about processes in the sort of the court system, you have to follow specific rules, and these can be quite arduous to navigate. So to keep one's composure while trying to make sure one has all the information. So this is great stuff. All in all, for these and other comments that are made by Garrett Bradley during her commentary track, it is so worth it. So please check it out if you can, that optional commentary track from 2021. And that's not all, because then we get, going into the supplements menu itself, we have, first up, we have a 2021 interview between Hilton Knowles and Garrett Bradley. And we have essentially this one-on-one talk. Hilton Knowles is asking, interviewing, making questions about Garrett Bradley's essentially life and her career and her approach to her own work and her own influences, etc. It's a lovely conversation, approximately 24 minutes. And here we get a little sense of her biographical details. She describes as having grown up in New York, and her parents were artists, were painters. And she also mentions that they had separated when she was at an early age, and also she hints that maybe there is this type of artist sensibility that she inherited from them, and this led to also her fascination with cinema, with films. She does mention certain filmmakers that she cites as maybe really important to her as she was growing up. She was discovering cinema. She mentions David Lean. She mentions John Cassavetes. She also mentions Julie Dash, Charles Burnett, and others. And the idea of what she refers to as implicit imagery, or dealing with the maybe what can be hinted at when one is watching something, versus the approach of what she and Hilton Knowles are referring to as narrative filmmaking, etc. And she talks about her education, Smith College, and then UCLA, and then the idea of how her films, talking about, or for example, Alone and Time, the Alone being that short film, and then Time being the work here, the feature-length work, how she, when she was making these films, of course, I think one of the things that she acknowledges that was part of say, the reaction of the film was how many people were also regarding these films as being maybe stories of the experiences from these African-American women in these particular circumstances. But while that is definitely true, and while Garrett Bradley acknowledges the significance and importance of these aspects, and they are very significant and important, she also says at the same time, at this point, how she doesn't mean for these films to be a type of monolithic representation. I think that's her phrase, in terms of the entirety of African American women, the experience of African American women. But these are their stories and their intimate stories and their own personal journeys and struggles. And I think that is hinting at the way in which she really cares about these individuals. Alon Watts in Alone, and also Sybil Fox Richardson in Time. She really cares about these individuals, so it's their individual stories that also, of course, can resonate with many other people who might be in similar situated circumstances, as I say. So that it is not meant, in her words, to be a type of monolithic representation, but it's meant to be their intimate portraits, while at the same time having some kind of connectivity or potential for connectivity for others. That's a really lovely distinction that she makes, by the way. And then going into a discussion of the work Time, how Garrett Bradley really wanted to get to know the people. That included getting to know Robert, who was at the time still serving. He was in the state penitentiary, and she also mentions too a little bit about that, Angola, and this complex, this prison complex, and how it was really vast in terms of the geographical space and area. And so it's mentioned here and elsewhere about how they needed to use a special, I think it was a special camera to capture just one aspect of it, which is used in the film, but then it's only just one little fraction of the entire geographical area of that particular prison complex itself, the property anyway. So so this is I think another very nuanced suggestion about maybe the harshness of the prison justice system. But in any event, also the idea of there were certain parallels that Garrett Bradley saw, in terms of the footage that she was shooting in the present moment and the videotape footage that she was able to explore to talk about the past. And she talks about how there were these coincidences about how, say, a certain profile shot of Fox Rich was shot by Garrett Bradley in the present, and how that really, in a poetic way, maybe it was unintentional, but fate was there, that it matched almost exactly a similar type of profile shot that was found in one of the videotaped archival footage tapes. So this is incredible. And also talking about the music too, how the music is very subtle, but it also is really important and effective. It acts, as they say, almost like a Greek chorus, which I think is a really fascinating way to talk about that. And so for these and other reasons, my dear friend, this conversation, 24 minutes with Garrett Bradley, is great. She also speaks too about some of her other work. She mentions the work Below Dreams. Below Dreams is not part of this package, unfortunately, but she does mention that. And also she talks too about other inspirations. She mentions to Zora Neale Hurston, and the way in which Zora Neale Hurston also was using the film camera for her own work, which could be described as maybe a type of, it's often been described in terms of like documentary or out in various communities, etc. For example, just in case you're interested, you can also find some of those great excerpts of Zora Neale Hurston's work, say in Florida, in a set. It's a Kino, or in the U.S., it's a Kino set, which is called Pioneers of African American Cinema, which I think also has been, if not is still currently available on the Criterion channel streaming service. At least I hope so. But in any event, yes, Zora Neale Hurston's work is also mentioned by Garrett Bradley and Hilton Wells here. So this is really great, in reference, I think, to Below Dreams, and then later to Alone, and then now to Time. So in any event, we get a wonderful sense of Garrett Bradley, her life and career. And this was so great for me because, as I say, I didn't know anything. I'm ashamed to say I didn't know anything about Garrett Bradley, but now I get a sense of who she is, and the power of her art, and how it's connected in these great ways. So please check this out. I hope I hope it's my comments have made it clear just how engaging I thought this particular discussion was, as I say, because I was just learning things with every word that was being mentioned. So Hilton Ellis too was just, he was speaking. There's a moment where he's talking about his own life as a kid growing, which really got to me. So yeah, this is great. So please check it out if you can. This is approximately 24 minutes. And that's not all, because the supplements continue with the short work. It's described as being from 2016 in the Criterion submenu, although I think at the end of the film, you can see the copyright symbol. It says copyright 2017, I think. But in any event, it's the short film, which is called Alone. You can see this short film. It's approximately 12 minutes, and you can see it, the film, and also you can watch it with an optional audio commentary track, excuse me, which is from 2021, we understand. Now, this is a short work which is focusing in on another extraordinary woman who is Alan Watts. And again, when I saw this for the first time, and I knew nothing about her story going into watching this, and by the end, I was so moved. I was incredibly moved by this. Hers is a story, too, which is involving incarceration of someone that we understand that she loves and cares for very deeply. And throughout this short work, she's trying, in a sense, to find a means by which she can, in essence, express that love and devotion towards this person that she loves, who is currently incarcerated. And what those choices are, and what the things that are available to her are, and how certain people, in particular a moment of her family reacting to this particular news, how people around her are reacting to this, as well as Alan Watts' own journey in terms of trying to engage with and avail herself to all the means that are available to her, limited as they are in the context of the criminal justice system. So it's described to, if you listen to the great commentary track too, it's described to as a kind of love story, and it is a love story, and it's great. It is really great. We also see, I don't want to get into too many details here, but when you watch the film and when you hear the commentary track from Alan Watts, you'll also get a sense of, and also when you hear the commentary track from Garrett Bradley on time, as well as when you watch the one-on-one discussion with Garrett Bradley, you'll also understand, or at least I understood, the deep connections between Alan's story in the film Alone, and also Sybil Fox Richards's story in Time. And in fact, there are some real great connections in terms of not just themes, but also the people, because there's some crossover. It's within. To borrow a phrase, it's all within the same cinematic universe, in a manner of speaking. But that cinematic universe is, in this case, reality. That's being covered by the documentary subject at hand here. So that too is one of the fascinating aspects of this, and it reminds us too of that phrase that was used by Garrett Bradley in the commentary and elsewhere about how the relationship between the film Alone and the film Time, they are sister films, to borrow her phrase. And I love to, I didn't notice this, but it was the spelling of Alan Watts' name. It's spelled, I understand, Alone. And so that was, and the word choice for the title Alone. And we understand too that the title of the work Alone, this is how it's pronounced, because we hear Garrett Bradley herself talk about the film in the commentary. She pronounces it Alone, but it's the word Alone about the woman who's named Alan Watts. So that was a really interesting detail there as well. So these and other reasons alone, the inclusion of this was also so eye-opening for me, and what an incredible journey. Brilliant stuff. And again, just a further indication to me of just the power and scope of Garrett Bradley and her artistic achievements. Amazing stuff. So please check that out if you can, the short work Alone. And that's not all in terms of the supplements, because then we get a sit-down, maybe discussion or interview, a joint interview from 2021. It's approximately 22 minutes. It's called Fox and Rob, referred to as Fox and Rob, and it's given the title Love, Resistance, and Time. Now, this is a joint interview with Sybil Fox Richardson and Robert Richardson. And so this is one of the key relationships in the film that's focused in on the film. And so it's only fitting, therefore, to get an interview from this particular couple. And we hear from them directly about how they met, their relationship, and we also get already some details about why Sybil Fox Richardson was using the video camera at such an early point the way she did, and how it was really important because excuse me, because they were also in a type of long distance relationship. This was even before all this stuff with prison and thing took place. That this is part of their relationship prior to these moments, and so and how they describe it. So that's where the camera, the importance of the use of the camera, seems to be coming from, which is so fascinating. Also, what is so great about this is certain details or aspects of their lives after or during the period where Robert was indeed incarcerated. That aspect of how Sybil Fox Richardson was bringing up her children, and how she was trying to, in a sense, create this family dynamic between and among herself and her children and her husband, their father. What she and he were trying to do in order to preserve that family dynamic. And this is something that is not necessarily revealed directly in the film itself, because the film could be said to be focusing in on Sybil Fox Richardson herself. We do meet Robert along the way. Yes, we do, but it could be said to be on that aspect. Here we get some more details about how they as a couple were trying to handle the situation. And so the idea of fatherhood, trying to be a father while being in prison, and how they mention the phrase incarcerated families, which is, I think, in reference to the fact that this is a family where one member is incarcerated in prison. But it is what they are mentioning here is that does not stop them from being a family. And that meant for them that they wanted to maintain that sense of fatherly bonds. They wanted to maintain that sense of fatherhood and the family dynamic. The father is the father. Robert is still a father. Robert is still a husband. And so they were making these efforts to be sure that the communications were always there between and among family members. They talk a little bit about the phone and the phone charges, and how this seems to be maybe another slightly maybe not so fair thing. But anyway, they talk about phone charges, but still this was a very important thing. They talk about the amount of time that Robert was actually engaging with or discussing or talking with or spending with his children, and how this was very important, and how they're saying there's nothing to be ashamed of. They were saying this, there's nothing to be ashamed of. People make mistakes. People make mistakes. And here is Robert trying to just make amends for that mistake. He is serving time because he understands and he acknowledges that he made a mistake. But that doesn't mean that he stops being a father. That doesn't mean that he stops being a husband. And so, there's also great, really, really powerful phrase, which was that they also acknowledged that it wasn't easy. It was very tough, incredibly tough. And that tough reality was, they also acknowledged their own making, because of the mistakes that they say that they made in terms of the crime that they acknowledged that they were involved in, etc. And so there's a phrase that's said here. It says, even though it was an ugly reality, we were going to own it. This is, I think, the heart of what this family is about, what they are about, and also what the film is about. And speaking of which, too, they also mention about meeting Garrett Bradley for the first time, how this was a way of telling their story, but their story was also their reality, and that reality was, in their words, the fight of our life. And oh yes, here is where Sybil Fox Richardson mentions how she didn't see any of the footage, that videotape footage that she made. 21 years, she says. And then and then also they mention a little bit about where they are now. So this is a great supplement. It also serves as a type of maybe addendum or coda, or almost a type of mini sequel, as it were, to the film Time. So it's really, I think, essential in that way. It's a wonderful, wonderful supplement, Fox and Rich. So please check this out if you can. Again, approximately 22 minutes. So that concludes the discussion of the supplements. Before I move on, I should point out just one thing, which is the back of the Criterion case here suggests that there is a trailer as well that's included. It does say trailer. However, I checked the copy that I have, and I couldn't locate any trailer in the menu or anything of that sort. Maybe I missed it, I'm not sure, but I checked the sub menu for supplements. I couldn't find any. I couldn't find any indication for trailer there. So I don't know. I couldn't find a trailer. However, if I missed it and you know where it is, please let me know. But in any case, even if there isn't any trailer, that's okay, because the supplements, I think, and I try to suggest this in my comments about them, I think are really very, very grand and very wonderful indeed. Now, I mentioned it before, it might look on paper to be low in quantity, but believe me, it is very high in quality. Of course, would I have loved to see more stuff? I would have loved to see more stuff. That's true for this, that's true for any title. But again, what we're getting is top-notch quality. Believe me, it is top-notch quality. And I can say, too, that this served a wonderful education for me into the world, the story, the further stories, the further adventures of these people that we are meeting, and their lives, their struggles, and their own feelings, their hearts and souls, as well as the cinematic craft and art of Garrett Bradley and her career. It's all here. It's all here. And again, it served such a great learning experience for me on so many levels. So the quality is top notch. And the quality doesn't end there too, because I should point out that I've taken out the booklet or the leaflet. It is a fold out, but I must say that while I'm not a big fan of the fold out, I'm not a fan of the fold out, but this paper that they're using, it is a little bit different than the paper that I'm used to, the paper quality. It has a type of thick quality to it, which I find very, very appealing. So it's not that usual type of paper, but it's a little bit different in quality, which I really like. And so it has this wonderful essay, which is called Time in the Mind by Doreen St. Félix. So please check this out. The essay, by the way, Doreen St. Félix talks about time. She also mentions Alone, and the story of Alone Watson, also the story of Sybil Fox Richardson, and also the specific themes, and also her own experiences with watching it, and how she does mention it in the form of, say, the experience of Sybil Fox Richardson and Alon Watts, and also the experience of what their stories are in the context of the landscape of the American experience, the perspective of the experience of African American experience, what she refers to as the African American female experience, but also how these are intimate portraits of these individual lives and their characters and their spirits. And so this is all intertwined in a real wonderfully written essay, Doreen St. Felix's essay called Time in the Mind. So please check it out if you can. And the essays are always great by Criterion and elsewhere. Also, there is a wonderful director's note by Garrett Bradley, dated October 2021. So please check that out if you can. It does serve, it seems that it's an acknowledgement and thanks to a certain number of individuals, but it's always nice to see these director's notes. So please check that out if you can as well. And then we have the wonderful artistic component to this. This, and of course this brilliant, this really fascinating concept here of this artistic rendering here. Now, the production credits indicate art director Sarah Habibi, Eric Skillman, designer La Moutique. So this, well done. I'm very intrigued by this use, this particular motif, and it also reminds me too the menu. When you go into the menu, you click, you put the disc into the player, and it goes to the menu, and it has this wonderful image of a cutout, which was I was not familiar with it when I first put the disc in, but then I realized, oh yes, this is what that is, and it's a really significant image. And then you hear in the background the one aspect of the music playing. It's a really welcoming menu, I must say. So overall, it's a brilliant package from the Criterion collection of this work from Garrett Bradley, 2020, which is Time. Please check it out if you haven't already done so. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.